What if the 12 tribes of Israel never truly vanished, but are still part of God's unfolding plan for the world? Their story is one of mystery, prophecy, and divine promise. And the answers may be closer than you think. Throughout history, people have wondered about their fate, but could their journey be intertwined with ours today? Could the 12 tribes, thought to be lost, still influence the world we live in? In ancient times, the tribes were scattered across nations, seemingly disappearing from the pages of history. But was this their true end, or was this scattering part of a divine mystery waiting to be revealed? Prophecies point to their return, not just as a historical people, but as part of a divine plan that has yet to be fulfilled. Their story may be the key to understanding not only biblical prophecy, but also the future of humanity. The mystery of the 12 tribes challenges us to look beyond the surface. What if these tribes are still among us, hidden in unexpected places, waiting to be restored? Could it be that their fate is connected to the very fabric of biblical prophecy and the times we are living in? As we uncover the layers of history, we will begin to see that this story is far from over. The Bible is filled with promises regarding the tribes. From the covenant with Abraham to the prophecies of their scattering and eventual return, the 12 tribes are central to God's plan for the world. The question we must ask ourselves is, where are they now? And what role do they play in the prophetic timeline? By the end of this journey, you may see the 12 tribes in a whole new light. But this isn't just a story about ancient history. It's a story that affects us today, in ways we might not even realize. The scattering of the tribes, their seemingly lost legacy, and the promises of their return are all woven into a grand narrative that stretches across time. Their story, like ours, is one of exile and redemption, loss and restoration. As we explore the mystery of the 12 tribes, reflect on your own life. Are there promises you've been waiting for, just like the tribes? The journey of the 12 tribes mirrors our own spiritual journey. Times of feeling scattered and lost, but always holding on to the hope of redemption. Could their story offer insight into your own path? Let's begin our exploration of the 12 tribes of Israel. And as we do, remember this. Their story is not just about the past, it's about the future. And that future might have more to do with your life than you ever imagined. By the end of this video, we'll uncover truths that could change how you see the Bible, the world, and your place in it. The story of the 12 tribes of Israel begins with a single man, Abraham. Genesis 12 records God's covenant with him, promising to make his descendants a great nation. This promise was passed down to his son Isaac, and then to his grandson Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel after he wrestled with an angel, symbolizing both personal transformation and the birth of a nation. The nation of Israel, with its 12 tribes, would become central to God's plan. Each tribe was descended from one of Jacob's sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Zebulun, Issachar, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Joseph, through his sons Ephraim and Manasseh and Benjamin. These tribes were not just political entities, they were the fulfillment of a divine promise made to Abraham. However, their history was far from smooth. From their time in Egypt to their settlement in the Promised Land, they faced countless challenges. In Genesis 49, Jacob gives prophetic blessings to his sons, outlining the future of each tribe. These blessings were more than just words, they were glimpses into the destiny of the tribes. Judah, for example, was prophesied to be the tribe of kings, while Levi was set apart for spiritual leadership. Joseph received a double portion through his sons Ephraim and Manasseh, while Reuben, the firstborn, lost his birthright due to his instability. The 12 tribes grew and flourished in the land of Canaan, but their unity was fragile. After the death of King Solomon, the kingdom was divided into two: the northern kingdom of Israel, consisting of 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom of Judah, which included the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. This division set the stage for the scattering of the northern tribes and the eventual mystery of the lost tribes. The Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom in 722 BC marked a turning point. The 10 northern tribes were taken into captivity and scattered throughout the Assyrian Empire. 2 Kings 17:6 records this event, describing how the Israelites were exiled and lost among the nations. This was the beginning of the mystery of the lost tribes, a mystery that has captivated scholars, theologians, and historians for centuries. What happened to these tribes after their exile? Did they assimilate into the nations, losing their identity, or did they survive, preserving their heritage in secret? These are the questions that have driven countless theories and speculations. Some believe the tribes migrated to distant lands, maintaining their traditions in secret, while others suggest that they were absorbed into other cultures, their legacy hidden but not forgotten. As we uncover the history of the 12 tribes, we must also ask ourselves, what is their role in God's plan today? The Bible is clear that their story is not over. Prophecies in Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel speak of their eventual return, their restoration as a unified people. Could we be living in the days when these prophecies are beginning to be fulfilled? Reflect on this. Just as the tribes were scattered and waiting for restoration, are there areas of your life where you feel scattered, lost, or forgotten? The story of the 12 tribes reminds us that even in exile, God's promises remain. What promises are you holding on to? Jacob's 12 sons became the foundation of the 12 tribes of Israel. Reuben, the firstborn, was supposed to lead, but due to his instability, he lost his birthright. Genesis 49:4. Judah, though not the eldest, rose to a position of leadership. His tribe would later produce the line of kings, including David and Solomon, and ultimately the Messiah. These brothers, though bound by blood, each carried a distinct destiny, shaping the future of their people. Joseph, one of Jacob's youngest sons, had a story marked by betrayal and redemption. Sold into slavery by his jealous brothers, he rose to power in Egypt, saving not only his family, but also the entire region from famine. His two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, would go on to receive a double portion of blessing, becoming two of the most prominent tribes in Israel's history. Genesis 48:19 tells us how Ephraim, though younger, would become greater than Manasseh. Levi, another of Jacob's sons, was set apart for a special role. His descendants would become the priests of Israel, serving in the temple and mediating between God and the people. Though Levi did not inherit land like the other tribes, this tribe's role in Israel's spiritual life was vital. The Levites were scattered among the other tribes, maintaining the nation's connection to God through worship and sacrifice. The blessings Jacob gave to his sons were prophetic, outlining the futures of the tribes. Genesis 49 is more than just a father's farewell. It's a roadmap for the future of the nation of Israel. Judah's leadership, Levi's priesthood, Joseph's double portion, all of these blessings had deep significance for the tribes and for the future of Israel. But these blessings also carried warnings. Reuben, Simeon, and Levi were all chastised for their past sins, and their tribes would face consequences as a result. Reuben, though the firstborn, lost his birthright. Simeon, along with Levi, was scattered among the other tribes due to their violent actions. Genesis 34. These warnings remind us that the choices we make can have lasting consequences. As the sons of Jacob grew into the leaders of their tribes, Israel began to take shape as a nation. But this nation was not without its struggles. Tribes often found themselves in conflict with each other, vying for power and influence. These internal divisions would later contribute to the eventual downfall of the northern kingdom and the scattering of the tribes. The story of Jacob's sons is not just a historical account. It's a reflection of the human condition. Like the tribes, we are often faced with choices that shape our future. The blessings and warnings Jacob gave to his sons remind us that our actions have consequences, both for ourselves and for those who come after us. Reflect on this. What choices are you making today that will shape your future? Are there areas of your life where you need to seek redemption, like Judah? Or are there promises you need to hold on to, like Joseph? The story of Jacob's sons offers lessons that are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Before Jacob's death, he gathered his sons and spoke over them prophetic blessings that would shape the destiny of their tribe. Genesis 49 records these blessings, which are not just a father's farewell, but a prophetic declaration of what each tribe would become. Judah, for instance, was given the promise of kingship. Jacob prophesied that the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Genesis 49:10. Promise fulfilled in the royal line of David and ultimately the Messiah. Levi, however, was set apart for a different purpose. The tribe of Levi was chosen for spiritual leadership, becoming the priests of Israel. While they did not receive a territory like the other tribes, their role in guiding the nation spiritually was crucial. Numbers 3:12 tells us that the Levites were consecrated to God, serving in the tabernacle and later the temple, ensuring Israel remained connected to God. Joseph's blessing, divided between his two sons Ephraim and Manasseh, represented a double portion of inheritance. Genesis 48:19 speaks of Ephraim's dominance over Manasseh, even though he was the younger son. This prophecy was fulfilled as Ephraim became one of the most powerful tribes in the northern kingdom of Israel. But this blessing was more than just about power. It was about legacy, the continuation of Joseph's faithfulness through his descendant. Each blessing Jacob gave carried a deeper meaning, not just for the tribes but for the entire nation of Israel. Simeon and Levi were warned of their violent tendencies, and Reuben, the firstborn, was chastised for his instability. These prophetic words foreshadowed the future struggles of these tribes. Reuben's tribe would never rise to prominence, and Simeon would be scattered among the other tribes. The blessings also highlight the diversity within the nation of Israel. Each tribe had a unique role to play, whether it was leadership, spiritual guidance, or military strength. The tribes were like different parts of the same body, each essential for the nation's survival. But just as the tribes had their strengths, they also had weaknesses, and these weaknesses would lead to division and conflict. Prophecies Jacob gave his sons didn't just apply to their immediate futures. They had implications for generations to come. Judah's promise of kingship would not be fully realized until centuries later with the reign of David. Levi's role in the temple would become even more crucial as the spiritual life of Israel developed, and Joseph's double portion would carry through Ephraim and Manasseh, influencing the northern kingdom for centuries. These blessings were not just for the tribes, they were for the entire nation of Israel, and they have echoes that resonate even today. What can we learn from these blessings? They remind us that each of us has a unique role to play, but that role comes with responsibilities. Our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. As we move forward in the story, we'll see how these prophecies began to unfold. Tribes would grow into a powerful nation, but their unity would soon be tested. What happens when a nation blessed by God loses its way? Under the reigns of King David and his son Solomon, the 12 tribes of Israel reached the height of their power. United under one king, they prospered as a nation. Solomon's reign was marked by wealth, wisdom, and the construction of the temple, a symbol of Israel's unity and devotion to God. But after Solomon's death, this unity shattered. The kingdom was divided into two. The northern kingdom of Israel, consisting of 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom of Judah, made up of Judah and Benjamin. This division wasn't just political, it was spiritual. The northern kingdom quickly fell into idolatry under King Jeroboam. 1 Kings 12 verse 30 describes how Jeroboam set up golden calves for the people to worship, leading Israel away from God. This spiritual decline weakened the northern tribes, making them vulnerable to external threats. The southern kingdom of Judah, though more faithful to God, was not immune to corruption and division. The fall of the northern kingdom came in 722 BC when the Assyrian Empire invaded and conquered Israel. 2 Kings 17:6 tells how the Israelites were taken into exile, scattered among the nations. This was the beginning of the mystery of the lost tribes, a mystery that has captivated scholars, theologians, and historians for centuries. What happened to these tribes after their exile? Did they assimilate into other nations, losing their identity? Or did they survive, preserving their heritage in secret? Division had always been a threat to Israel's unity, and the split between the northern and southern kingdoms marked the beginning of a long period of decline. The tribes of Israel, once united under a single covenant, were now divided and scattered. What had started as a nation blessed by God had become a fractured people, exiled and seemingly lost to history. But was this the end of their story? The southern kingdom of Judah, though it survived longer than the northern kingdom, eventually faced its own exile at the hands of the Babylonians in 586 BC. The destruction of the temple and the exile of the people marked the end of Israel's golden age. But even in exile, the promises made to the 12 tribes were not forgotten. Prophecies in the books of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel spoke of their eventual return and restoration. The division of the kingdom was not just a historical event, it was a spiritual lesson. When a nation turns away from God, division and destruction follow. The story of the divided kingdom reminds us that unity and faith is essential for survival. What divisions are we facing in our own lives today? Are there areas where we have turned away from God, leading to fragmentation and conflict? As we continue to explore the mystery of the lost tribes, we'll see that their story is far from over. Even in exile, there was hope. Prophecies foretold their return, their restoration as a unified people. Could we be living in the days when these prophecies are beginning to be fulfilled? The fate of the lost tribes has been one of the greatest mysteries in biblical history. When the northern kingdom of Israel fell to the Assyrians in 722 BC, the 10 tribes were exiled and scattered throughout the empire. 2 Kings 17 verse 6 describes how the Israelites were taken captive and dispersed among the nations. But what happened to them after that? Did they vanish from history, or did they survive, maintaining their identity in secret? One theory suggests that the lost tribes assimilated into the nations where they were exiled, losing their identity over time. But other theories propose that the tribes migrated to distant lands, preserving their traditions in secret. Some believe that the tribes settled in places as far as Ethiopia, India, and even Japan. Could it be that the lost tribes are still among us today, hidden in plain sight? Biblical prophecy suggests that the lost tribes were never truly lost. Amos 9 verse 9 speaks of God sifting the house of Israel among all nations. Yet Isaiah 11:11-12 promises that God will assemble the scattered people of Israel in the four corners of the earth. These verses hint at a future gathering, a restoration of the tribes in the end time. Could we be living in the days when these prophecies are being fulfilled? What do you think? Are the lost tribes still among us? Could they be part of the nations and peoples we see today? Some scholars believe that the descendants of the lost tribes have been absorbed into the Jewish diaspora, while others suggest that they exist in hidden communities, waiting for the day of their return. The mystery of the lost tribes challenges us to rethink our understanding of history. The search for the lost tribes is not just a quest for historical truth. It's a spiritual journey. The tribes represent more than just a lost people. They symbolize the hope of restoration. In many ways, their story is our story. Just as the tribes were scattered, we too often feel lost, separated from our purpose. But the promise of their return reminds us that restoration is always possible. As we continue our exploration, consider this. What if the lost tribes are not just a historical mystery, but a prophetic sign of things to come? Their return is tied to the ultimate redemption of Israel and the fulfillment of God's promises. Could their restoration be a key event in the unfolding of biblical prophecy? The lost tribes are more than just a mystery. They are a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in exile, God's promises remain. As we move forward, we'll explore what the future holds for these tribes. What role will they play in the end times? And what can their story teach us about our own journey of faith and restoration? The Bible is clear. The story of the 12 tribes is not over. Ezekiel 37 verse 21-22 speaks of a future time when God will gather the tribes from all the nations and bring them back to their land. This promise of restoration is central to biblical prophecy and plays a crucial role in the end time. But how will this restoration occur? And what will it mean for the world? In Revelation 7:4-8, we see the sealing of 144,000 individuals, 12,000 from each tribe. This moment marks the reconstitution of the 12 tribes, who play a key role in God's final plan. The tribes, once scattered, are now restored, fulfilling the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This prophecy points to a future where the divisions between the tribes are healed and their unity is restored. This restoration is not just about the physical return of the tribes. It's about the restoration of God's promises. Just as the tribes will be gathered, we too are called to gather the scattered pieces of our lives and return to our purpose. Reflect for a moment. What parts of your life need restoration? What promises have you abandoned that need to be reclaimed? The future of the tribes serves as a reminder that God's promises are never forgotten, even when they seem distant. The restoration of the 12 tribes is a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter how lost or scattered we feel, there's always a path back to wholeness. What areas of your life need to be restored today? This prophecy also challenges us to think about our role in God's larger plan. The 12 tribes will play a significant role in the end times, but what role will you play in the story unfolding today? How can you be part of the restoration, not just of the tribes, but of the world around you? As we look to the future, we see that the story of the 12 tribes is far from over. Their restoration will not only change the course of history, but also offer hope for all who have been scattered and lost. Are we living in the days when this prophecy is about to be fulfilled? Let's take these lessons and apply them to our own lives. Just as the tribes will be restored, so too can we experience restoration in our own journeys. But how do we make this a reality? The story of the 12 tribes of Israel is filled with lessons that are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. One of the most important lessons is the need for moral leadership. Tribes thrived under strong leaders like David and Solomon, but they crumbled when their leaders turned away God. How does this apply to your life? Are you leading with integrity, both in your personal life and in your relationships? Another key lesson is unity and diversity. The 12 tribes were distinct, each with its own strengths and weaknesses, yet they formed a single nation. This unity allowed them to thrive, but division led to their downfall. In our own lives, how can we embrace our differences while working toward a common goal? Whether in our families, communities, or workplaces, unity is a powerful force. We also learn the value of patience in waiting for promise. God's promises to Abraham took generations to fulfill, and the tribes had to wait centuries. Restoration. What promises are you waiting for? How can you remain patient and faithful, even when the fulfillment seems distant? The story of the 12 tribes reminds us that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own. Power of redemption is another critical theme. Tribes faced exile, division, and near destruction, yet they were promised restoration. No matter how broken things may seem, there is always hope for redemption. What areas of your life need healing and restoration? How can you embrace the process of rebuilding, both in your personal life and in your faith journey? Finally, the story of the 12 tribes challenges us to think about legacy. What are we building today that will impact future generations? Just as the tribes shape the course of history, our actions today will ripple through time. What legacy are you leaving behind? And how can you ensure that it's one of faith, integrity, and perseverance? The story of the 12 tribes of Israel is not just ancient history. It's a living narrative that continues to shape the world today. From their rise as a united nation to their division and exile, the tribes have left a lasting legacy. But their story is far from over. Biblical prophecy promises their restoration, a return that will change the course of history. If the 12 tribes have not been forgotten, neither have you. Just as God promised to restore the tribes, He promises to restore you. No matter how lost or scattered you feel, there is always hope for redemption. You are part of a bigger story, one that has been unfolding for thousands of years, and the role you play is vital. As we close, I encourage you to reflect on the lessons we've uncovered. What part of this story resonated most with you? What promises are you waiting for? And how can you hold on to hope during the waiting? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your reflections. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear about the enduring power of God's promises. Together, we'll continue exploring these deep, powerful stories, because the Bible is more than history. It's a guide for our lives today. Let's keep the conversation going. How will you apply the story of the 12 tribes in your own life?